I do want to point out that the topic of going to Asia is an interesting one. A lot of people are interested about, but it's also a topic that a lot of people seem to kind of know about it. They seem to have heard a thing or two left and right about what it means. I think my main message for you guys is not as simple as you think. If there's one takeaway after some of the points I make, is to walk out and realizing that, oh shit, it's not as simple as you think. You do need to approach it in a more careful, cautious way, in a smart way. There are ways to make that happen and make that doable, and hopefully I'll be able to share some of that with you. Just a quick intro, I'm the Chief Corporate Development Officer at Wargaming. Wargaming is a small indie studio based out of Cyprus. We have about 16 offices around the world with 160 million players enjoying our titles ranging from World of Tanks, World of Warplanes, World of Warships, recently Massive Orion and whatnot. We are primarily a PC free-to-play, PC console mobile free-to-play developer and publisher, and I'm happy to talk to you about Wargaming after the talk as well, if you're interested. Yeah, as I just said, we're fairly okay developer and publisher. Headquartered in Cyprus, which is where I'm based, very far away from Israel, especially if you're trying to swim here. But other than that, we have presence in North America, Europe, Eastern Europe, Russia, as well as many parts of Asia, including Singapore, Taiwan, Philippines, Seoul, Japan, Australia, and a few other places. As I said, the key point really is, it's not as easy as you think. I think a better approach for most people is just to assume that you really don't know anything. The reason why I say that is I've seen too many cases where you've kind of been there, you've visited Beijing once or twice, you've been to G-Star in Korea, you walk away thinking, oh, I kind of know how to do this. I think that's a more dangerous approach and mindset than saying, I really don't know anything. Just because a limited set of knowledge and confidence behind that makes you make mistakes. And that is not where anybody wants to go. There's a quote by Winston Lord, former US ambassador to China. As you can read, there's China expert is an oxymoron or just a moron. It's a complex, fast-moving, a lot of contradictions. One of the ways I describe this is, I think in any society there are layers of understanding. You can visit a country for 2 days, and you can walk away with one layer of understanding. You can visit a couple more times, and you may be able to get a layer of understanding beneath that, which may be very different from your initial layer of understanding. As you live there, over the first few years, you'll have another layer of understanding. And it goes on and on and on. Recently I had a conversation with a good friend of mine from Beijing, born and raised in Beijing, having spent a few years in the US studying and working. He used the same example. Even for him, as a local Beijing, born and bred, he has challenges understanding the depth of the layers, especially when you're talking to different elements of society, whether it's certain industries or businesses or governments or whatnot. It's difficult. When a local native is telling you that, my God, it's really difficult for me to understand some of the layers in our society, I think it would be pretty clear that you're making a very big mistake if you think you understand something. Once again, just because you visited Beijing twice and you had Beijing duck for dinner, that does not make you a China expert. But I only point this out because I have seen so many people and organizations that make mistakes in terms of the people they hire, the people they work with. I'll give you an example. American companies have a tendency to hire or bring on board or work with people who speak really good English, but they're Chinese or they're Korean. Chances are that's not necessarily going to get you an expert. So once again, just emphasizing again the complexities behind each society. And even in certain places, a country is really not a country. A country can have different layers and components as well, and regions, which may vary from place to place. Just elaborating a little bit further on the layers of understanding concept, compared to, let's say, Western societies like North America, Western Europe, which are generally what we call low-context environments or cultures, Asian societies tend to be much more higher context cultures. And what you mean by that is, in low-context societies like America, conversations tend to be very direct and straightforward. You speak your mind in a very simplified way. In Asia, I think Japan is in one end of that spectrum. It's very high context. What you say isn't necessarily what you mean, but if you're not aware of that, the perception you get from the receiving side is that person said something in a literal sense, but that's not the case. You could go to a Japanese business meeting and somebody will say yes to you when they actually meant no, but because it's a high context conversation culture, the yes for them when they said it really was a no, but you walk away thinking they said yes. You go back to your home country all excited and planning your business around that one yes, thinking there was a yes, and then later on you get frustrated because no movement is happening. This is what I mean by the low context and high context differences. And you have to be able to understand those differences. Even the locals sometimes struggle. And for you, once again, going back to my main point, for you to think you know, because I know a lot of people who've been to Tokyo once or Seoul once, and they walk away, tell all their friends, oh, in Japan, when they say this, it means that, and you're all confident walking around being the expert once again. You're not. Please don't do that. Be humble. Just assume you don't know anything, because if you assume you don't know anything, somebody will come along and help you. So, coming along and helping you means you need to rely on an expert. The example I use is, I know wine. I like wine. I drink wine. I know the differences between New World, Old World, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I can talk a little bit about terroir, the grape varieties and whatnot, but by no means am I an expert. So for me, if I go to a nice restaurant, I can do one of two things. I could open up the 20-page wine list and pretend I know some of the wines, pick the wine, and pray to God that it's going to match your food. Or what I do is you call up the sommelier. That guy's paid full-time to be there to know the subject matter and match your preferences of wine along with the food and make sure you have a great dining experience. In a similar fashion, you could approach business and entering Asia in a similar kind of a way. You could kind of pretend you know, because you watch CNN and you watch CCTV4 and you picked up a couple of points, and you can try to go to Beijing and try to do business on your own. Possible, doable. Probably you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You have to find someone who can help you. Someone on your side of the table. It could be a full-time employee, part-time employee, contractor, advisory member, a consultant, whatnot. But that's the strong suggestion I would make to you is find somebody, a group of people, an individual, who you can rely on your side to help you navigate through that complexity of the market and the societies. The challenge is, once again, who are these people? What are these people? It does require a lot of homework from your side. You do have to do a lot of research. The point I'm trying to make in terms of this is communicating in your native language is important. For example, if you're a Russian speaker, you have a preference to find another Russian-speaking person who can help you navigate through that market. It's important. I think balancing that, or maybe perhaps erring a little bit more on the side of communication may not be as fluent, but finding someone who really understands that local market or region is really critically important. And this does not mean, again, some guy who worked for, I don't know, AT&T and they visited China twice and Tokyo twice over the past 3 years. That's not the person you're looking for. Err on the side of chances are within your network, it's going to be challenging to find people that really know the market. You do have to really extend it out, do deep research and dive and soul searching and headhunting to find the right people who understand that market. Do that research and bring that person on your side and rely on that person to really help guide you, make your decisions, and do the research. And once again, it's something that there's no shortcut. You can't really wave a magic wand and find that person or suddenly understand the market. You do have to do some really serious, deep research into the people, the market. You have to go visit. I mean, I think the fact that all of you are here in Tel Aviv, you probably have a bit more understanding of this market than you had before you came here, whether it's your first time or second time. Same kind of thing. Do go to the trade shows. Do go talk to people. I think I see some folks in the audience who come from the region. Just be proactive. If you're serious about considering Asia as a market, and you should, I don't have to share with you the numbers, you have to put your miles in your shoes to make that happen. Talk to as many people as possible. Go to as many events as possible. If you can't afford time, delegate it to someone. Read as many of the local trade journals as possible. Also, many Asian regions, I think most regions in the world who are serious about technology, they have some sort of a governmental agency, one or the another, who's there to help people like you understand the market and do business there. Seek them out. Some may be very helpful, some may not be, but it doesn't hurt. Usually, they're paying for everything. Sometimes they would offer you help to come over and conduct business as well. So I would encourage you to tap into all of those resources, and they exist at a national level, provincial level, city level, university level. There are many resources like that out there. So take advantage of those. If you look at a map of China as an example, and if you realize how big it is, it's roughly similar size, as North America or America, U.S. U.S. has 4 time zones. I think it's 5 if you include Hawaii. China has 1 time zone. So it's easy for you to just assume that China is one country. Or, let me take a step back. You look at Asia, and a lot of people talk about Asia if it's one monolithic block. It really isn't. People make mistakes saying, well, Taiwan, China, the mainland are kind of similar, right? They speak the same language, same kind of culture. Yes and no. There's a tremendous amount of differences when you're dealing with the Taiwanese versus Chinese, or Singaporeans, or people from Hong Kong and Macau. Same thing for Korea and Japan and all the Southeast Asian countries. Please do not make the mistake of assuming it's one block of a region where you can lob something over the wall and suddenly you're going to start generating revenues. Yeah, you can do something. I mean, you will be, if you have a successful product and service, you will be able to do business, but you're most likely not optimizing for the potentials of those markets. So another assumption to really throw out of your head is, do not consider the region as one block. Using China again as an example, there's Beijing, there's Shanghai, there's Guangzhou and Shenzhen. Within China, these are commonly referred to as Tier 1 cities because of the disposable income, the infrastructure, and whatnot. The environment there is very different from the Tier 2 cities, which are more inland, lower disposable incomes, and less developed infrastructure. Tier 3 cities, whatnot. For you to just assume China is one country and throw everything there into one little bucket and assume it's going to work out is a false assumption. You need to be mindful of the immensity and the size and the complexity of even one country such as China. The number of ethnic groups there, the number of languages and dialects that are spoken there is more than most other continents. So be mindful of that. Since we're a game industry conference, we have to talk about the games specifically. I think there's a pretty clear trend in the industry right now in terms of games being more tailored and customized for the local markets. And what I mean by that is, previously, one developer could make one game. I think because there is a scarcity of content generally previously, that game is received and absorbed by a universal group of global audience. Where we are today is, as our industry grows and as more players and developers and publishers come into the market, more sophisticated developers and publishers are tailoring their experiences for that local market that they're addressing, which brings better happiness to the local market. But what it means is there's clear distinctions in terms of how markets are evolving from region to region and country to country. Look at the top grossing charts of China. Not that many years ago, there were titles from all over the world, from Korea, Japan, US, Europe, whatnot. Now, as the years go by, more and more of the titles in that top chart is local. Why? Because local developers and publishers are going to do a better job of creating a fun experience that really hits a spot for the local audience. Same thing is happening in Korea. Same thing is happening in Japan. The same thing is happening in other regions of the world. And this is only going to accelerate. So I think it's a trend that you have to recognize. And at the end of the day, I think you have to focus your resources and pick and choose and prioritize based on your core strengths as a developer and your core strengths as a product. I think you need to do a deep introspection in terms of, is my game really appropriate for mainland China? Is it really appropriate for Thailand? Which markets does it more resonate with? Then, unless you have unlimited resources, and I don't think anybody does, you have to pick and choose and prioritize which markets you want to go to based on your product market fit. It's something that used to not be a problem, but is becoming a problem more and more. So the better you understand the product market fit of your product, the better you're able to prioritize, the better you're going to have the higher bang for the buck for the resource you put in to your Asia effort. It's extension of the same thing, but the gamers are different. How they play, where they play, how much they spend or don't spend, the regulations, the cultures, the habits are very, very different. You need to be able to understand that. One of the things I always recommend is, if you do have the opportunity, when you go visit these countries and these cities, don't just go hang out with other expat game industry people. That's fine, but you're not going to learn a lot. It's better to go deep dive into the local markets, particularly in the examples of the internet cafes that are prevalent in many parts of East Asia and Southeast Asia. Go there. Just walk around the neighborhood. You don't have to walk far in many of these places to find one. You can usually tell by the big posters of Overwatch or League of Legends in front on the street. Just go into one. I would recommend spend a day, spend half a day, spend an hour, however much you can afford. Sit there, pay money, drink the coffee, eat the instant noodles, see what everybody's playing, see what the mood is, see how they're yelling, see how they're smoking in the corner. Once you're able to really get immersed in that environment, and the internet cafe market, depending on country, varies in impact from 10, 15, 20% to 30, 40, 50% of the market. That's where, I'll use Korea as an example. Internet cafes may not be where most of the playtime is actually happening, but internet cafes are where the trend starts. It's where the momentum starts. If all of your friends are suddenly playing a new game, such as Overwatch, in the internet cafes, that's what everybody's going to be talking about. That's where the source of the K factor is going to be emanating from. And so, although it may not be where all the revenues and playtime is generated, it's going to have a tremendous impact on your marketing and user acquisition efforts, which is why it's really important for you to get a visceral understanding of those types of things. If you're retail, go retail. Go to the local expos. Do as much as you can to have that visceral understanding of the local gamers, because they will be different. If you get a chance, go visit their homes. Go visit as many homes as possible. See how they're set up. See how big or small the living room is. Understand why consoles don't work, because mom's going to be breathing down your back, if you're playing with an Xbox, which is a dedicated gaming machine, she's much more going to be willing to buy you a laptop because you can at least do homework on it. That's the theory. Get that understanding. Moving on to the business side of it, you've all heard the stereotypes. Japan, business doing it so slow. In China, it's hard to know who to trust. Those stereotypes have all kernels of truth behind it. Once again, going back to my main point, really just throw everything out. Just don't go around pretending you know the market or the habits or the cultures. The limited understanding you have is really going to damage you more. Just come in with an open slate. Just learn as much as you can with an open mind, and learn the nuances. Learn the layers of understanding that I talked about. I had a recent kind of little fiasco internally within Wargaming, where we were having a long day session with our local partner in Asia, and after the session, they invited us to a nice dinner, and the expectation from their side is, as a team building, relationship building effort, they wanted to take us out for more drinking. For them, it's a critical part of doing business. It is an extension of your business day. But for a lot of our Western colleagues, it was like, oh, we're done with our work, so we're going to go back to the hotel and, play games or rest or whatnot. And this is where the immediate misunderstanding starts to happen, because you don't understand that in that market, that's continuation of business, that's continuation of the relationship, that you need to go that extra mile to make that business relationship successful. Because you don't have that understanding, you walk away from that dinner/drinking invitation, and that has an impact on your business. So that's just an example, but understand these things. A lot of it may not fit your philosophies or how you operate or your daily patterns of work and play, but you do have to be very open about it and consider what those people value and think about how you can tailor your attitudes and relationships to maximize what they're looking for and what you're looking for. Kind of going towards the end, we talked about getting someone on your side to do business, whether it's full-time or consultant or advisor. In certain markets, you may be forced to find a partner, such as China or Vietnam, because of regulatory reasons. Or in certain markets, you just want a partner because it's so hard to navigate. Korea or Japan or maybe some of the Southeast Asian regions as an example, because Southeast Asia, because there's so many countries that you want to address, and it's difficult for you to address them as a monolithic block, so you need a partner who understands the intricacies of these markets. Or Korea, for example, there are certain nuances in the way the games are operated and marketed. They plaster phone booths and buses and subways with marketing. It's things you wouldn't be able to do on your own, even if you had someone on your side, just because the complexities are so tough. Find the right partner. I think this is a statement that seems easy, but it's one of the most difficult things that I've observed over the years, over my careers at Wargaming, previously with Tencent as well. There is an inherent misunderstanding and distrust that happens, particularly with East and West, just because you don't understand each other. It's so foreign. And there's a lot of stereotypical images of Asia or China or Korea or Japan that people from outside of that region come in with, and it really hampers a proper way of vetting and evaluating partners. Do your homework again, do your research. You have to talk to as many people as possible. Reference checks are super important because, end of the day, you can never ascertain what your relationship is going to be like with that partner. But what you can check is how others who have worked with that partner or that potential partner have felt about that relationship. Usually that's the best judge for whether a partner is good or bad. So do your homework, talk to those people, and determine who's the best fit. And now this is a tough one. the best fit doesn't mean the biggest publishing partner or the biggest development partner. Not Tencent, I don't know if any Tencent folks here, but Tencent isn't necessarily the best partner for you in China. If you have a certain product and if you have a certain product that fits with their audience, they're a great partner. But if it's not, there may be other partners that may be better for you. Just because it's big doesn't mean it's good. The drawback of a big partner is they have a lot of things on their plate. You're just one of many opportunities that are on their plate. So perhaps a smaller partner might be more interesting for you. Or at least for a smaller partner, you're more important for them as well. So consider all of these factors when you look for a partner. The chemistry is also important. The relationship and how you feel and how you talk with them is really important as well. So consider these things very carefully. Once again, just to wrap up, if there's one thing you could walk away with, just walk out assuming you really don't know anything. Just throw away all the preconceptions, the things you've heard, the things you've kind of gathered during your trips and whatnot. Just throw it all out and start over from scratch and tell people that you want to learn, you want to really understand, you need help, find the right people to help you, and you'll have a better chance at success in Asia.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.